Hi guys and gals out there, my name is Leif from Devs and Dice. On this week's Boxes of Shame, I have a special little treat for you. I'm gonna paint up the Reaper Toad Demon as my version of a Red Slaad. Also, this episode is a little bit special because of two reasons. One, I'm going to take you through how I created a concept of my color scheme. And this is done without putting a drop of paint on the brush. Second reason, let's just say that this paint project this week was particularly challenging for me. I at least went into two great pitfalls. Hopefully you can learn from this. Well, hopefully actually you already know about this. At least I know I've learned from my mistakes, which is a good thing. And I've kept these in the video because I want to show that it doesn't always go as you expect and you have to sort of adapt. But before we start, I just want to ask you to, if you like these videos that I try to put out each and every week, consider subscribing to my channel, liking, or sharing. It really helps the channel out to keep these videos going. Alright, enough of me yapping. Let's get down to painting.
A couple of years ago I started getting into D&D. As my passion for D&D grew, so did my collection of minis. And like many others out there, I now have boxes of shame. Legions of unpainted minis. Now this is my underdog story. This is me painting every single one of my miniatures.
Alright, hi everyone. So I figured I was gonna do a little bit of a tutorial to show you guys and gals how I am planning to sort of, I guess, get a cheap sort of concept of how to do this. So I'm just gonna copy the existing sort of artwork from Wizards of the Coast. Now I'm gonna create one reference, and I'm also gonna, if you don't know Photoshop, this is not a tutorial about Photoshop, just so you know, but hopefully this will give you something of interest regardless. So I'm just creating two duplicates, or first I'm copying it, then I'm creating another duplicate. So let's just say this one is a reference. This is the leftist one. This one, yeah, let's call this base, and let's call this skin or something. Is that weird? No. So what I'm looking for is I want to do a little bit more details on my Slaad, and I'm looking for concepts. Now I figured I've dabbed a little bit in Photoshop before, so I'm gonna try to actually do a concept of this. So what I'm looking for now is really sort of a skin color. See if I can hit that sort of tone. Should be somewhere around here, and I'm just using the hue saturation functionality here. I'm just using the curves. I just want to do a little bit more contrast, something like that. So the way I'm thinking about doing this is, instead of adding to this excellent artwork, I'm figuring that I want to actually detract from it, or remove something from it. So I'm gonna come in now with simply a brush, an eraser, and I'm going to try to sort of first work out where I want him to be, you know, pure red, and I'm going to have his head. So the way I'm thinking about this is essentially like most animals have like a very usually sort of brighter belly. It's almost like, imagine, I don't know if this helps, but imagine like the softer tissues. That's where usually most animals tend to sort of be a little bit more brighter. So I'm gonna sort of erase, i.e., or keep the red on his forearms. But for instance, the hands, the inside of a hand, that's going to be sort of this new color potentially. At least I'm going to try to make it so. His legs, I think, are going to be pretty much red. All of it. Or this nice purple color. Perhaps some fade, perhaps a little bit that it comes up here. No, this is the first time I'm doing this, to be honest, so I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but usually whenever I have something that I need to sort of think about, it's a good idea to make a digital copy because, you know, undos and whatnot. And I mean, I figured this won't take that long and I can get a clear sort of hint of what I'm going at or going for. I'm just gonna make this brush a little bit smaller because I want to sort of work in a little bit of a redness even here so we can get a hint of that. You can see actually on the original concept here, you can actually see that they have these sort of different color variations with the green, which I'm unsure if I'm going to be able to paint because that is very, very fine detail. We'll see. Whoopsie daisy. No, what did I do? I accidentally just swapped the layer. There we go. To prove my point, undos are great in this sense. So I think I'm starting to sort of, let's do this part as well. It's coming down a little bit over his neck or something like that, or his throat area. Should be perhaps a little bit here. And then I wonder if I can do sort of, you know, some sort of almost like freckles or something like that. I'm actually gonna pull up the hardness a little bit. I have no idea if how I'm gonna be able to, whoops, that was a bad one, to do this, to be honest, but it's more something to set him apart a little bit and not just slap on red paint, you know, and call it a day. Okay, let's see if we can fiddle around with this. So there it becomes too dark. Now it has no saturation. There it becomes overly saturated. But really what I think I'm after is a little bit more of a sort of, yeah, there we go. A little bit more sort of, I guess, I don't know if this is olive skin, but a little bit like more, I guess, tan. So I sort of liked where it was there. I wonder if we need to bump that down. This always is a little bit tricky. But the good thing here is you can sort of play around with different settings. Oh yeah. Something like that. So this was just a quick concept, but you know what, guys and gals, I'm gonna go for this paint scheme over here. So now you know how I apparently do quick concepts. Back to the painting. Alright, let's get this show on the road, shall we? So, this is the Toad Demon. I've even seen it being called two things, Toad Demon or Frog Demon. But this was the best mini I could find that sort of resembled the Red Slaad. And this one is from Reaper Bones or Reaper Miniatures, and I think this is probably the first or the second of their line. Now, like many of Reaper's miniatures, this one was quite riddled with mold lines all over the place. So, as per usual, it was out with the files, with the Citadel mold remover. It was quite a lot, and as you can see, each and every piece has, of course, mold lines, and it's also centered, almost it feels like, on the leg, so to get maximum, I guess, publicity or maximum focus on it. Here I'm just dry fitting all of these, and I'm thinking a little bit about how I want this miniature to sort of stand, if I can make it sort of lean forward more. And this was when I realized that, oh crap, right, the the front two arms are not sort of elevated. They are actually, he's actually dragging his arms down into the ground, similar to like a gorilla or something like that. But I figured, you know what, let's keep on pushing. Here's the sort of base that came with it. You're gonna see that I actually opted to not use that. But anyway, starting to glue all of the parts together using Army Painter Super Glue, I find that to be quite good. It doesn't dry up like some of my other super glues does, even though I close the lid and all of that. Simple thing. Often with Reaper bones, I find it that you have to use a little bit of muscles in order to sort of press in, you know, the PVC parts, because it is soft plastic. And you can probably see here now also that some of the legs, his rear legs, are quite bent, so I had to use some sort of force for this. So here I'm going to use, or I'm going to check if I could actually use one of the bases, and here I'm actually looking at the one that came with, but eventually, you know what, screw that, I'm abandoning that idea. So here I'm just trying to sort of bend the different limbs so they would be as flush as possible to the otherwise flat base. I wonder if I'm going to go to miniature hell here, because I'm literally using, I think, a WizKids base and a Reaper Mini. Oh mon dieu, I hope I hope Satan does not see this video. So here you can see that I even tried some activator. That didn't work. It was because I was impatient. Eventually I got it to work. Now for the basing, I just put out a ton of PVC glue. Here I'm using Eileen's tacky glue. You can use any sort of white glue or hobby glue or anything like that. I'm just giving you know, the base a good old coverage, and use an old brush if you're using a brush like I did to get into all of the nooks and crannies. Here is my mixture of different sort of grout or gravel. It's basically a mixture of sand and then some larger pieces and then some decorative rocks. I just do that whenever I want to do sort of a quick base with some variation. Now once that grips, like I usually do, I come in with some diluted white glue just to sort of lock that in. I found that really sort of makes it really durable, and you're not going to have any problems with sort of rocks coming off. This is what it looks like, and I actually used my master soap box just to keep it elevated so it didn't glue stuck to anything. Here, this is the result after the glue has dried, and as you can see, it is, no pun intended, rock hard. I gave the good old Toad a Zenithal priming, and I started out with some heavy red from Vallejo and some orange. Can't remember exactly what color, but I essentially wanted to try it on my wet palette to create this sort of blend and these sort of in-between colors, because I've seen some pro painters. And then I'm adding a little bit of glaze medium, because my idea here was originally that, you know what, I'm just gonna glaze the, you know, the bejesus out of this model. I'm going to learn. So I start out, I've loaded the brush and wiped up most of it. And yeah, here I'm feeling okay-ish, but yeah, and then, you know, I looked at the concept art, and I got into a weak spot where I was like, you know what, perhaps I should paint this more sort of with the purple underbelly. Perhaps that is the way I should go, and I'm sort of just trying to blend all of these colors together. And it's somewhere around here I'm like, you know what, screw this. I basically ran upstairs and cleaned the entire thing. Failure number one. As you can see, I managed to clean off most of the paint, but it's a little bit, you can see some of the colors there. I went to my airbrush station and I actually put in some heavy red and diluted that and added some red ink, which was something I bought quite recently, a set of artist inks from Liquitex. And here I'm just sort of coming in with this red color, and I'm already liking this result much more. It's sort of, I don't know what it is, but it just sort of, it's going on thin, it's looking vibrant. I'm really liking the colors. I can still see the shadows. I'm really starting to fall in love with inks, to be honest. So here I'm coming in with some yellow oxide from Liquitex and then a little bit of red, and I'm not cleaning the pot in between, so I'm just sort of letting all of these colors mix just to create that first highlight. And here I'm spraying it from somewhere around 90 degrees to about, I would say, 70-60 degrees, something like that. And as you can see, the results are quick, they look amazing. And then as a final sort of highlight, just to give that extra punch, I've added some more yellow oxide into this and sort of just really trying to focus on the head, just to create that sort of focal point. I left that to dry, and then I figured I was going to come in with some red tone and sort of paint in some more dark areas to really get nice definition of this. So here I'm still optimistic, and now I'm starting to realize, wait a minute, what's happening? Is the entire thing, it's getting red? And I'm literally here dumbstruck. I have no idea what's happening. And then I figure out, crap, inks are not water resistant, and I of course rehydrated the entire ink stage with my wash. So I acted quickly and basically took, I have some tissue, some, what do you call it, wet napkins next to my paint station, because I don't have water on the floor I'm sitting, so I just used that, and then the heaviest sort of brush I have. But that was pretty much the way it was looking. And here, oh my god, I was not happy. But you know what? I go back to it. Once that had dried, I basically did the same thing. Into the airbrush studio, wham bam, thank you man, do that again. And here we are. Back to square one. This time I actually made sure to varnish all of this first, and I actually found out also that apparently it can also help if you add medium to your inks, just so you know, good people out there. And this time I'm a little bit careful. I'm sort of trying out the water, seeing, does it work? And eventually I'm gaining in confidence. I'm understanding that, yeah, this was definitely the way to go. So we're back on the road again. That was the failure number 2. I'm gonna come in here with some cobalt skin and also a little bit of skeleton bone on the palette. I'm also putting glaze medium into both of them. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm starting out with these bony protrusions, and I'm using skeleton bone to basically get a nice sort of coat on them, a base coat, I guess you would call it. I'm not sure I should call this really glazing, because I'm going on pretty thick, I think, and I'm not sure if I added the glaze medium to this, to be honest, from start. I did add some water, but I want to go on pretty thick, at least on the first layer, because I want these sort of bones to be something that pop out from the rest of from the body. So also making sure to just nab all of those protrusions on his back and on his toes. And as you might see, previously I came in with some of that red wash in, I guess you would call it the base of the horns, just to sort of darken the skin there. Here I'm using some of that cobalt skin, and here is where the glaze really comes to work, and I'm trying to sort of follow my concept art and sort of get a little bit more of a sort of brighter, fleshy chest and sort of stomach or abdominal area. Now, I went a little bit overboard, so I'm putting in some heavy red, which was the base color, and I'm putting in some glaze medium. I'm just trying to sort of feather out ever so slightly that those edges. And that's when I realized actually that, you know what, I've put in enough glaze medium just to sort of tint this. So I actually tried it a little bit, and I was liking that result much more because it looked much more like it really belonged in, you know, in the same color. So I'm pretty much just covering all of this with a thinned out glaze of heavy red. You're gonna notice I'm gonna go a lot back and forth on that abdominal area. I didn't really get to where I wanted the first time, but I figured meanwhile I was gonna use some of that bony color together with some white to paint in the actual teeth. So here I'm coming in with some white just to sort of paint in the eyes. I knew that this was going to be quite pivotal, so I used a very nice brush, or a brush with a sharp tip. And take your time when doing this. It pays to be quite neat when it comes to eyes, because we generally draw our gaze to sort of the eyes and the face of the models. Once I did that, I decided to put some highlights on some of the teeth, just some of that white. Then I'm coming in with some additional skeleton bone with glaze medium. And then finally I started tackling that chest again. I started to lay on another layer of glaze, trying to get it to be a little bit more sort of the cobalt skin. Here I'm coming in with some orange fluorescent light, which I hadn't used before. I added some glaze medium, and I figured, you know what, I want to tint the eyes, and wouldn't it be cool if they're super sort of orange and angry looking. And then, failure number 3. I repainted the eyes white because that didn't look very good. Now, while the eyes were drying, I came in with, I can't remember which colors, but essentially a dark green color as a base color for all of these sort of, it looks like he has some sort of spots on his body. And then I came in with some more sort of emerald green from Army Painter, I think this one, and just sort of making some small dots in the middle as a sort of highlight. Here I'm coming in with Mornfang Brown, and I'm diluting it so the paint flows much easily. And I'm essentially just covering the entire sort of base with this, just to create a nice sort of dark ground texture. Or color, actually. Here you can see that I started thinking about a concept about basically creating an artificial shadow. So here I'm mixing some of the paints that I have left on my wet palette. I'm going totally bananas as usual, but I'm essentially sort of getting to a brighter sort of color of brown. So this I'm actually doing what I perceive as outside of the Toad Demon's shadow area. And then I used some black, watered that down just to sort of re-emphasize the shadow. So here I'm sort of painting it underneath where I think the shadow should be. And that's the result. And it looks kind of nice because you're literally sort of grounding the figure there. Here I'm coming in with some Seraphim sepia on all of the bones just to make them look a little bit more grimy and dirty, because I mean these things have seen action. Now at this point I should have been a little bit neater with it. I did come in with some skeleton bone also to sort of brighten these up. But I also wasn't particularly happy with the eyes, so I decided to go over them with a red ink just to tint them completely. And here I'm coming in with a little bit of a brighter orange and then a yellow, because I figured I wanted to sort of try to hit some of the dots on the eyes, so it came up to sort of a brighter and almost a yellow sort of shade. So, and once that had dried, and then I used a pen just to sort of get in that iris. And then a dot of white just for that highlight on the eyes gives them a little bit more life. And I think this is where we're gonna see the final result. Alright, good people. That was it, for this week at least. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please look downstairs and, hit that subscribe button for me. Like it or share it. Like I said, it helps the channel out immensely. Alright, so with that, I wish you an awesome day, and I hope to see you next week. But until then, toodaloo.